Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here, got another Master Duel video for you. So, today I wanted to talk about a deck that I tried out recently that quickly became one of my favorites. And not just one of my favorites, I think this might just be one of the best decks I've ever played, because I have an almost 80% win rate with it, climbing through multiple ranks despite losing the vast majority of my coin flips. I'm here to talk to you today about Primite Bystial Fiendsmith. Now, this is not a concept that is entirely new. Of course, it's been covered by a lot of other players and channels, but I wanted to bring more attention to it because I think this deck is highly underrated, and after playing with it for just a little bit, it's definitely like one of the stronger decks I've played with in recent times. So I'm going to show a deck list at the end of the video, and we're going to show mostly going second games here. I got like 6 games total. The first 5 are going to be me losing the coin flip, going second, and winning anyway. I do still have some other decks in the new pack I want to cover. Memento and Adamantipator videos are already scheduled. By the way, if you're interested in supporting as a YouTube member, you can actually see those videos now already early, but those are definitely coming later this week. Anyway, we're starting with our first game here against Labyrinth. I wanted to start with a going second game against Lab because I wanted to demonstrate that this is a control deck that can compete with even the best control decks in Master Duel right now. And the really cool thing is that unlike a lot of, a lot of people, they typically think of decks like Lab, right, when they think of control decks, or like Paleo. These really back row heavy trap-based decks, but there are a lot of decks out there that are control-based that aren't necessarily about setting, a ton of back rows, and Primite Bystial Fiendsmith is definitely going to be one of them. The cool thing about this archetype too, or this deck rather, is that it's made up of a bunch of engines, and there's really not any hard and fast combo lines when it comes to even if you go first, right? It's generally just about like if you got Fiendsmith cards, make Fiendsmith plays, make like a Desiree if you can, or if not, use your Fiendsmith engine to go into a rank 6 like Caesar or Evolzar Lars, which we're playing in this deck here. If you open Primite stuff, great. Set up Drill Beam, Primite Drill Beam. We already covered that in our most recent viewer special, where a lot of you all showed me just how good that card is, and it is unbelievably good for a longer control game, because of its ability to reset itself continuously without getting banished. Negating and banishing cards itself every single turn means that this is a highly valuable recurable resource, which will win you a lot of games. So here we just straight up outvalued Labyrinth. Like I said, one of the already very established control decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! This game we're going up against a Primite Dark Magician deck. Of course, Primite Blue Eyes is everywhere, but Primite does support another OG Yu-Gi-Oh! Monster there. Yeah, I think this deck is just so accessible in terms of not only the fact that it's fairly easy to play, and that it's really good going first or second, but also it's one of those decks where if you've already been building a lot of, popular meta decks, you kind of just get to play this for free, right? I think it's a total of 1/3 of the decks in Master Duel right now are using the Fiendsmith engine. Like Lurie's play rate, I'm pretty sure is 33.3%, which would be, 1/3. And on top of that, of course, Primite is used in Primite Blue Eyes, which is currently seeing an almost unprecedented level of play in Ranked Ladder right now. So if you're, one of those players like me who tends to just keep up with the meta in general, you're already really rewarded by doing so because you get to just play this deck, again, basically for free. This deck is literally just all of those engines kind of combined and staples. The other really cool thing about this deck is that there's a ton of different ways that you can build and play it too, right? We are on a ton of different various hand traps, and you can, freely swap out for hand traps of your choice. Like, I'm playing a couple of Ghost Ogres here, which is pretty good against Blue Eyes in particular, especially like True Light. If you Ghost Ogre a True Light, not only do you effectively stop the effect from resolving, but you also get to blow up all monsters on their field. But it didn't really come up for me that much. There are other things you could definitely play too. We're on Drolls, we're on Fulos, we're on Sea Ash, all that kind of obvious stuff, but as well as Nib. You could play Veilers if you wanted, and Imperms if you wanted some more monster negation. Like I said, just ton of flexibility in that regard, and even in engines as well. I actually considered a Kashtira engine for this deck. It was very, very close whether or not I was going to play that, but I ultimately decided not to because I kind of felt like between Fiendsmith and Primite, I already had enough good proactive stuff, and I wanted to focus a little more on reactive stuff. And having so many reactive plays is what makes this deck so good at going second, right? And it's also why I really like the Bystial engine in this deck. One, it's just good in this meta in general, but even beyond that, the Bystial engine is kind of both proactive and reactive because we are playing Lubellion. I'm kind of playing a reduced Bystial engine. Again, I'll show my list at the end of the video, but for Bystials, I'm on 1 Magnum Hut, 2 Druiswarm, 2 Baldrake, 2 Lubellion, 1 Regained, which is less than some other people are playing in these decks, but I don't know, I have kind of considered playing a 3rd Lubellion and possibly a 3rd Druiswarm. But honestly, I really like having the deck at 40 cards, makes it feel a lot more consistent, and the Bystials are really good, but they're not something that I feel like we necessarily need like a ton of right here. So in this game in particular, it was all about outing Dragoon. Up till this point, you've watched me just bait out my opponent's responses until I can finally go into Typhone, which is a non-targeting bounce, so I can dodge the target and destruction protection of the Dragoon. And that's another great thing about this deck. It's very toolboxy. You have a ton of different, different resources that you can access in order to out different things. Another pro of this deck that I really, really like is that the extra deck is wide open. I'm playing things like a Striker Dragon, so that way I can go Ether Barrel into Striker Dragon to make SP with an extract monster if I need to. I'm playing a second Fiendsmith Requiem, which this is the first Fiendsmith deck I've even considered that. I actually had to craft my second Requiem for this deck, because I've only owned one up till this point, because it was all I needed, right? But yeah, you could also, speaking of variety, in terms of the vanilla monsters that we're playing, I haven't really talked about that yet. So I'm on White Dustin and Wattail Dragon. White Dustin, of course, being a light fiend, means it is good for the Fiendsmith engine. Just note that you can't really summon it off Lordly Load and then go into Fiendsmith plays, because Lordly Load locks you out of special summon monsters activating their effects on the field, right? So you won't be able to go into Requiem and then use the effect. But still, good for just getting out off of Primite Roar, or even if you draw it, you can just normal summon it and then go into Requiem, right? And that's effectively kind of the same thing as opening Fabled Lurry and then just going into the Necro-Equip combo that way. But I'm on Wattail Dragon in particular for a couple of reasons, right? I know, was it Joshua Schmidt? I know the deck that kind of first popularized this build was on Summoned Skull, but I like Wattail Dragon in particular because not only is it a level 6 for going into rank 6s, but it's also a dragon for going into Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. If you're not on as heavy of a Bystial engine, I don't think you need to be on Wattail Dragon. You could just play Summoned Skull, but yeah, for the Hieratic Seal, I really like having the option to have a level 6 vanilla dragon. Also, if you're going to go into Caesar, you can already do that off Necro-Equip plus, the Engraver. You don't necessarily have to play Summoned Skull for it. I've seen other builds that are on Alexandrite Dragon, the idea being that you can go Alexandrite Dragon plus a 6, could be Engraver or a Bystial to go into Chaos Angel, which I definitely like that idea. Would potentially consider trying something like that myself as well. But the Wattail Dragon has been working out especially well for me. Been very, very much enjoying it. And there's even a game, it might even be this next one here, where we open both vanilla monsters, and it's not this one. It might have even been one that was already featured. I haven't been paying too much attention, but yeah, there's even games where you open both vanilla monsters, and that's actually completely fine because you can just normal summon White Dustin, go into Fiendsmith plays, and then still have Wattail Dragon in hand for something like Primite Drill Beam, right? Yeah, the Primite engine has just been impressing me very, very much. It doesn't look like a lot on paper, but in practice, it's been exceptionally powerful. So, as mentioned, or no, actually, I haven't mentioned this yet. This is honestly pretty similar in concept to the more recent Bystial Fiendsmith deck that was popular like in previous seasons. So if you played that deck, it really is honestly just as simple as you add the Primite engine and your deck just got a lot better. Now, I don't know. I might have overhyped this deck a little bit in the intro and like in my title and thumbnail. I don't know if it's like the actual best deck I've ever played, but in terms of like playing a deck in this meta that feels good going first or second and just laddering and like winning a lot on ranked ladder, I have not experienced this in quite some time. Even playing Snake Eye, you know, I guess I'll say the difference is like, yeah, with Snake Eye on ranked ladder, I do get a good amount of wins, maybe even comparable win rates, but you know, even I, known combo defender / enjoyer Hexlex, do have to admit that it's nice to have a change of pace where instead of, you know, weaving through hand traps to build a really, really strong board, this deck is more evocative of like that kind of back and forth, you know, really interactive play of Yu-Gi-Oh! That a lot of players really value, myself included, honestly. It is a bit of an ironic statement to say I like combo decks and also like I don't really enjoy nom games. I'll definitely acknowledge that. But this is truly one of those decks where you don't have to compromise, I feel. It just feels really good to play overall. Because when you're winning these sort of uphill battles going second, it really is through not only using your hand traps at good moments, but also through effectively using your engine to play through whatever your opponent has left. You truly are playing through what they have. You know, I will say too that I am definitely playing this in a little bit of lower ranked than I normally would. This is the deck I took from Platinum 1 up to Diamond 4. So I actually haven't really run into Snake Eye at all with this deck yet. But I would love to run this deck in multiple games against Snake Eye. I think it would be very, very fun to see if I could effectively... Wait, I think I do actually have one Snake Eye game, but that might be one of the duels I'm saving for another video. Yeah, there were some games that I played with this deck that I do plan on using for another video, talking more about using hand traps, or I guess kind of giving examples of my opponent using hand traps in situations where I think it could have been used a little bit better. But anyway, that'll be for another video. Speaking of other videos, don't worry, I am still planning on releasing content for a lot of the archetypes that were featured in the most recent selection pack. As I mentioned at the top of the video, I already have stuff for Memento and Adamantipator on the channel, so you can check that out if you feel like joining as a channel member, which would also get you a slot in our credits at the end. It'd be hugely appreciated. But what I haven't recorded yet, and I still want to, is a build and play for Centurion. Get some more live games in there, because I know I had a lot of fun, you know, making those. I know from the comment section a lot of people are enjoying them too. Is this our going first game? I think it was, actually. So I wanted to include this going first game in particular because it's not even that impressive of a turn one hand. You know, as you can see, all we literally had was Lubellion for Magnum Hut for Baldrake, and that was it. Our opponent on Dragon Link here is going to try to go in stuff, but I'm using Ash Blossom to put a stop to that. You'll also notice that I utilized the Called By there to ensure they weren't able to summon the Wyver Burster. That's why I didn't feel the need to Ash Blossom the Wyver Burster, right? They already had the Dragon Ravine up, so I knew I wanted to use the Ash Blossom against that. And when it comes to Chaos Space, I knew that I was going to go for either Wyver Burster or Collapse Serpent. And I could use the Called By to banish whatever attribute they put in the yard to make sure they weren't able to summon it. Another great thing I love about this deck, like any control deck, it really rewards you for not just knowing, you know, when it's generally good to use disruptions, but when it's good to use disruptions against very specific decks as well. So, you know, again, control decks generally are like this, but this deck in particular, I definitely feels like really rewards you for knowing how to play your opponent's deck, and in turn knowing how to play against your opponent's deck. I will say I definitely should have overlaid my Magnum Hut and Baldrake into Lars here. My thought process was, oh, I can Baldrake sack Magnum Hut and then go IP plus Baldrake into SP, but I also could have Lars and had an Omni negate, and that would have been true as well. But it actually doesn't even end up mattering here in this game, because as you're about to see, my opponent just does a bunch of plays and just concedes into my board. They literally realize, like, oh, I just can't do anything into this, so they just surrender. Alright, so here is the list as mentioned, and as I mentioned before as well, there are a ton of different ways that you could build this, so I would definitely encourage you to experiment. I'm definitely going to moving forward. Don't just kind of take my build as gospel and like, this is the one good build for this deck. No, there are a lot of different ways you could play it. Like I said, instead of Wattail Dragon, you could play Summon Skull or Alexandrite Dragon for various results. You could play Kashtira, you could play any number of hand traps that I'm playing or not playing, or even the ones I am playing in different ratios. There's just so many different things you can do here. But thank you all for watching very much. Yeah, like I said, just had a blast playing this deck, and I wasn't even really planning on making this video until after I, you know, had this ladder win streak, or not even, it wasn't necessarily a win streak, but just a really, really good record. And I was like, I have to talk about this because I had a blast playing this. That's actually a lot of the reason why I haven't been doing more build-in plays, if you're wondering, is because, you know, for, I don't want to say the first time in a while, but more than recent times, lately I've been just playing a lot of Master Duel on my own time for fun, and outside of, like, you know, the scope of making YouTube videos. So this was an example where initially I threw this deck together because I saw other people using it and wanted to have some fun, but then later was like, no, I have to talk about this in a video because this was way too good, way too good to not bring up here and to cover. So definitely expect me to update and do some variations of this build in the future as well, and let me know if you want to see more in the comment section. I always appreciate hearing that kind of feedback. But thank you all so very much for watching this video. Super appreciate you, and I think we're just gonna go ahead and move on now with our outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which, by the way, is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.